Alrighty, everybody, we're gonna get started again. So we have Roni Zaide with her book Food Therapy, recipes to nourish your body and soul. So we're gonna give a little chat about that, and then it looks like there's more snacks. So
Great. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Yeah, my name is Roni. I'm a local chef and cookbook author. I have 2 books now, and I've been in Calgary for almost 20 years now, which feels crazy. My first book came out 5 years ago. It's called Roni's Kitchen, and it was a crowdfunding campaign, and it was great. It was crazy and great. It has 100 recipes, 3 chapters. So first chapter of this book is home. I grew up in Israel, so there's a lot of Mediterranean recipes from my grandma's Persian kitchen. The second is travel. I traveled for most of my 20s and 30s, so there's Indian, Thai, all kinds of fine recipes. And the third chapter is dedicated to Calgary, which is where I kind of developed my own culinary style. I worked at the Coup for about 8 years, and then I opened my own business 10 years ago. And this is my new book, Food Therapy. It was just published last month. Both of my books were self-published and printed in Canada. And I'd like to share some more about my new book with you. So I was actually working on a different book about a year ago, started working on that, and then some things happened. And I paused that, and I was actually thinking of reading you the intro of my new book to give a little more background of how this book came together. There's a chance I will cry, but I'll just take it slow. I'm actually starting with a quote from one of my favorite books. Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift. And it's by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. If you haven't read it, it's a beautiful, amazing book. I highly recommend it. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass.
Braiding Sweetgrass.
Yes.
Robin Kimmerer.
Yeah. Yeah, she's amazing.
She's got a second book up now, which is really good as well.
Nice. Food is therapy. After my family and I went through a very scary and traumatic experience, for the first time in my life, food became nothing but fuel. I had no desire to eat, and definitely not to eat. As someone who's usually so passionate about food, that was a new experience that was so foreign to me. I felt weird and confusing, and added another layer of sadness to my state of mind. Did I lose the joy of cooking and eating? How could that be? Food has always been such a big part of my life. From a place of feeling empty and so helpless, with the support of my amazing family and friends, I slowly started my healing journey. As I began to prepare meals for my family, I found a familiar feeling of comfort in the kitchen once again. I quickly realized that all I wanted to do during that time was cook for my loved ones. When people asked what they can do to support me, I would say, come over for dinner. I think that was confusing for some of them, as they wanted to take care of us, but I insisted, just come over and let me cook for you. So for a while, almost every day, different friends came over for a meal, sometimes even twice a day. My kitchen was bustling. I was cooking some of my favorite recipes, but also testing out new ideas that were waiting to come to life. All of a sudden, I even felt a bit excited when a new recipe turned out great. I had missed that feeling of a spark concern. I felt that I could put my heart and love into the food I was making, that I had something to focus on other than my deep sadness and fears. I had found a creative outlet, a feeling that there's something I could do to pause all those terrible thoughts, and it felt so good to have something to feel so passionate about again. After all, food is one of my love languages. Food therapy is made of those recipes that brought me much comfort in the time I really needed it. I had found hope and solace in the kitchen, and those feelings inspired writing this book. The creation of this book has been a big part of my healing journey. It helped me regulate, focus, and feel hopeful, even when it was so hard and all I wanted to do was just curl up in bed and never leave it. As I returned to the kitchen, I was reminded of how food can be so emotional and how it brings people together. Looking at the list of recipes in this book, I realized many of them are my mom's. As I prepared them, I often go down memory lane. Just gonna skip this part. These memory bites, as I like to call them, are like time traveling in my mind. I smell my grandma's kitchen.
Yeah, it's okay. Good tears. It's okay. It keeps you connected.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I read this.
Of course.
It always. Many of these recipes in the book are my family go-tos, recipes we make every time, every week, again and again. After my first book was published, people kept sharing. They've been using my book on a regular basis. I hope this book becomes this for you as well, and that you create more beautiful memories of your own. You're my heart and kitchen, yours.
Nice.
Thank you.
What part of this room are you in?
Just outside Tel Aviv. Yeah. So, yeah, I was reading this the other day at a different event, and someone came up to me after and she shared that she's also been through some big trauma in her life and could relate to how I was feeling, and we were talking about it, and it made me realize, like, we don't have to have the same experience or the same trauma to relate to that feeling of like, I lost myself. And she also slowly found her way back in the kitchen. And food is therapy. A lot of these recipes are either recipes I grew up on, or just, my daughter would ask for these pancakes, or, and it's, people always, we gather in the kitchen. And I love creating recipes. I love, trying to recreate my family's recipes. So in the first book, that was a big task. My mom's mom, she was from Iran, and she made the most amazing Persian food. And she passed away when I was 18. And I used to love watching her cook. She would, there's no recipes, of course. Everything was like this. And my mom tried to write it down. And then when I was writing this book, I said, Mom, we got to figure this out. Not just for us, but to preserve this. So my mom would say, okay, this is what we know. The list of ingredients. Now, and my mom, she has the fresh memory of like the taste. So I would say, okay, you cook, I'm gonna watch you and write down what I think you're putting in there. And then I would make it again and again and again. And of course, it's never gonna taste exactly the same, but it was a really beautiful thing to do with her. And now my daughter, she's 2 and she loves to help us in the kitchen and cook. And my mom was visiting us and we made my grandma's dolmas, the stuffed grape leaves. And it was so special, like, she loved to roll. Of course, it didn't look like a roll, and it was, but it was really, it was really beautiful. Just gonna take a minute. Also, self-publishing a book is quite an adventure. Over the years, so I worked at restaurants, then I started doing cooking classes. I taught for many years. Many of them. I used to think I wanted to have my own restaurant, and I did a pop-up at Cafe Koi many years ago. It was like a Mediterranean brunch. Realized I don't want to have my own restaurant without starting one, so that was a good lesson. And people started asking, do you have a cookbook? Do you have a cookbook? And I thought, do people buy cookbooks still? Like, the internet is so, everything. But people kept asking, and I realized people need recipes they trust. Because I've had that experience. You go online, you find a recipe, you get the ingredients, you follow the instructions, and it doesn't work. And that's heartbreaking and a waste of time and money. So I said, okay, let's see, I'll do a crowdfunding campaign. And if it works, it works. And it worked. And a few years went by. I decided I was ready for another book. And as I mentioned, I was working on a completely different one. And then I couldn't think of anything. But then as I started to cook again, I realized, okay, this is what I'm going to work on. This is what I'm going to write on. And it was so good this year to have something to be able to work on and focus on. And even though, you know, it's exhausting making a book without a child, it's very exhausting making a book with a child.
Yeah.
I want, you know, like she's amazing. I can't work 14 hours a day anymore. I don't want to do that. So definitely been interesting. Her hand is in the first page and she always likes to show people. She's like, my phone is here. Yeah, she's great. Yeah, this book has 5 categories. So it's breakfast, brunch, appetizers, mains, sides, and desserts. And my books are vegan, but you don't have to be vegan to enjoy them. A lot of my clients are not. It's people that just want to add more vegetables to their diet. My friend Erin described it the best, and I actually put her quote on the back of the book. She said, nutrient dense and delicious can go hand in hand. Like, I think people often feel like, well, it's either healthy or yummy. You can't have both. And my focus is really like take just wholesome ingredient and make them into yummy food. And I have some samples for you to try. Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to tell you about. Yeah, I think this is all I wanted to share. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them now, or we can chat later. And I can tell you a little bit about what I brought for you to taste.
Where are your books sold?
Well, usually you can get them online, but Canada Post right now is on strike. So that's been interesting. I did find another solution, but it's a little more convoluted. You can get them here and in quite a few stores around town. So on my website, there's a list of the stores you can find each book.
What's your website?
RoniSkitchen.com. Yeah. And all my classes now are online. So if, I know a lot of people want me to teach in person again. And I did teach for about 7 years in person cooking classes, and it was really fun. It was very hands-on. When COVID started, I had to transition online, and then I had a kid, and so they're still online. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and I understand that, but yeah, it could also be a fun thing to do with your kids on a cold winter day when you don't want to leave the house. And I cater. I do catering in town, which has been amazing. Like vegan weddings in Alberta, not something you see a lot. And I love it most when people don't tell their guests, and then they eat the food, and then people come to me and say, I ate a vegan meal and I liked it. And I think that's the best way to, you know, just show people there's so many ways, you know, like you don't have to change your whole life if you don't want to. You can just incorporate different things. Yeah, so we have here today 2 recipes for my new book. There's actually a cracker recipe too, but I didn't get to make it. We have smoked carrots and dilly dip. And the dilly dip is actually tofu based. Maybe I shouldn't have told you until you tried it. But we make it all the time. So the base is tofu. So you got, you know, the nice protein. It's also nut free. A lot of my friends are like, we can't send anything to school with our kids. You can't send nuts, you can't send seeds. And you can play with the herbs. I've done them with different kinds of herbs, but the dilly one and the minty one are the biggest hit. And a lot of my like recipes, I kind of write, what can you serve this with from the book? So what matches with what? And one of my favorite things we did for this one is menu suggestions. So there's 6 different menus featuring recipes from the book. For the first book, there's another cool thing. At the end, there's index by ingredient. So all the ingredients in the book are, you know, you're like, oh, but I have a lot of eggplant. Okay, here's all the recipes. Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of recipes here. So, yeah. So
What's your favorite recipe of all?
that's horseshoes. You know, for this first book, there's 100 recipes. My list was 400. I had to choose for 400. So I went through all the recipes over the year for my classes, my events, my pop-up, my catering, family stuff. It was really hard to choose. And until the last minute, there was like changes. This book, I decided to go with a smaller book. So this book, I love it. I feel like it's my masterpiece. It tells my story. There's lots of just like stories about my life too, incorporate with the recipes. To send this book in Calgary cost $17. And then if you know Julie Van Rosendaal, she's a local foodie. She wrote many cookbooks, and she's become my unofficial mentor. And she said, listen, small books. This is a flat rate, $5 across Canada to ship it. It's cheaper to print, cheaper to sell, and then it makes it more accessible. And then hopefully I can make more books more often. But I would say the dilly dip is actually one of my favorites, just because we make it all the time. The beans, there's a butter bean masabacha. It's traditionally made with chickpeas. It's funny, I just made it for my friend. She's a bit obsessed. The butter beans. It takes 10 minutes to put together. They're in the tahini sauce, and then it's like a tomato jalapeno salsa they serve on top. It's really comforting, but also like nourishing at the same time. And from this one, probably one of my grandma's recipes, her eggplants. Yeah, that would be my favorite one from here. That was fun too, like realizing how many recipes were already plant-based and how easy it was to change the ones that weren't. So this is roasted eggplant with just a cashew cream, caramelized onions with spices, and pomegranate. I see some of you are getting hungry. I apologize. Yes.
Do you ever have any of your food, any place that we can buy prepared other than a large function or something like a market or?
I used to do meal service.
Oh,
And I used to do markets. I'm actually a market collective this weekend. I came over for a bit and I'm going back with the books.
Where's that?
It's at the BMO Center.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a holiday art market. But I'm thinking I may have to start that again because people are asking and it feels more doable than the classes,
When your daughter's in school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, she's home with us, but the classes I would stay up until midnight. So can't do that anymore. But I think maybe in the near future it could happen again. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, how did you get out of your funk of not wanting to cook? Because I'm in that
In the funk.
space right now. I have diabetes.
Yeah.
It's really hard to figure out what even foods to eat, what to cook. I go into my kitchen and I turn back.
It's overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I get out of the funk? It definitely was a process. It was weird. I would just like eat ingredients,
Yeah.
like
Cheese.
just like keep it simple, substance. But I think it was like one day I just said, I'm just gonna make one meal for our family. And it just brought so much joy. And I said, okay, I'll make another one. Like it wasn't like I am healed, I am, it was just like slow, small steps. Actually, someone came to my launch, she bought the new book, and she's been to a few of my classes in the past. And she said, listen, I don't think you know, but I came to one of your classes many years ago, and I started incorporating more plant-based food into my diet. She's had diabetes for over 40 years. And since using plant-based recipes, and specifically, she said, like my first book, because there's such a variety, her doctor was like, what's happening? How, like, everything's, I wish all of my patients were like you. So it's possible. I feel like, I don't know your specifics, but yeah.
I try to do vegan as much as possible. I've been
Yeah.
vegetarian mostly.
Yeah. But I think, if you focus on like whole foods, nutrient dense, but also enjoy the food because,
How do you make this? Like, I have the eggplant and I'm going, it's gonna sit in my fridge and turn.
yeah. Yes, I've been there and it's, yeah, I don't have a magic solution, but I think just maybe, find a few recipes that you like and are easy and just make them. again and again and again. And then maybe with that comes that comfort of like, okay, I feel more adventurous to them, you know? But I think it's so important that we enjoy our food. Like, I think sometimes our culture is like, oh, like, you know, be healthy, but people are suffering, then it's not, there needs to be pleasure. It's about, I think that's a big part of health too. Yeah. I think you will find your way.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if no one has any other questions, please come try sample. There's some business cards here, and I'll be up front, signing books. If anybody has, more questions, they feel more comfortable asking in person, please do. And thanks, yeah, thanks for being here.
Ooh, carrots.
Slide this over so nobody knocks the camera.
It's not salmon.
So that's like the, you know, what it's